If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You don't know what you don't know, and every day is a learning opportunity. That is the best boot camp for being a leader. It teaches you never have all the answers.
Ivy League education, published author, lived in Asia for 20 years. Now you're the executive director of a major performing arts organization in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Just incredible journey.
I think the biggest misconception about nonprofit is that you don't have a profit. What's missing in nonprofit is that for. You are not for profit. You are for your mission. You are for the impact you want to have in the world. The international epidemic of loneliness and isolation is written up in reports. It's written by the Surgeon General. You can see it with your kids that sit on the screens all day. How do we get people to put the screen down and gather in person for a shared experience?
Welcome back to Hunks Talking Junk podcast, where we're talking all things leadership, branding, and culture. We have a special guest today in honor of National Sibling Day. We have none other than my older sister. She's 18 months older than me, but I call her my twin, even though it's always seemed like she was more like 5 or 6 years more mature. Alison Friedman. She's an incredible leader, an incredible entrepreneur, now executive, and international experience. We're just going to have so many insights here, so much crossover into the business world and into what she does. And so let's jump into it. Alison, welcome to the podcast.
You really leaned into that older sister, didn't you?
I really emphasize older sister.
Yeah,
I was telling you, the thing that I love about this podcast experience that I wasn't expecting is I get to have a 45-minute uninterrupted conversation with someone where I'm not thinking about looking at my phone or I'm not getting distracted. It's like, for my ADD mind, it's as mindful as I can possibly be.
This might be the most we've ever just had a focused conversation in our entire lives. I've been looking forward to this, Nick.
Yeah,
we should do this more often.
Oh, who are you?
Yeah, nice
Who
to
am
meet
I?
you. What are we doing here?
So let's jump into it. So you have an incredible success story. I'll try to highlight here. Ivy League education, published author, lived in Asia for 20 years, China, and then Hong Kong. Now you're the executive director of a major performing arts organization in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Just incredible journey. Very, I would say, unique in terms of where people might go coming out of college and beyond. So I guess let's start with how you landed where you are today, right? You went to China to pursue a Fulbright. You ended up starting a nonprofit, led that. That brought you to Hong Kong, where you were performing arts director for the Kowloon Arts District, and then you got recruited back here to this side of the pond, as we call it. So walk us through that 25-year journey now, and then we'll get into the leadership and branding culture side of things.
I think your life journey often makes sense only looking back. I mean, just like you were talking to students about where they should apply for their jobs, how they should build a career. And what I try and help them understand is you often don't know going forward. One of my favorite Chinese phrases is 摸个石头过河, which means
you broke out the Chinese in the first answer. I like it.
There you go. You cross the river by feeling the stones.
Cross the river by feeling the stones.
So you just kind of feel your way. If you've ever walked across a path and you're kind of feeling with your feet to get yourself over there. And in a lot of ways, that's how we build a career. Looking back, then you see the logic and the how it all braided together in a story arc. So looking back, my story arc, I think, has two key elements. One is the triumph of and over or. Growing up, we were interested in lots of things. I loved the arts. I was interested in entrepreneurship. I loved international relations, learning different languages. And our teachers and our family said, pick one. Do you like arts or business? Do you like academics or politics? Or. I think often that happens with parents and teachers that are worried and want you to focus. So for me, I thought, well, I love the arts. I'm interested in languages. I'm interested in entrepreneurship. And my career path allowed me to find the triumph of the and of all of those things. I went to Beijing on a Fulbright fellowship to research performing arts in China. That allowed me to combine my interest in language, my love of the arts. I built a company, Ping Pong Productions, so my interest in business and entrepreneurship. And at the heart of it all, it was using the arts to bring people together, to show you things in that you don't get to see in the news headlines, that you don't see through business, that you don't see necessarily through politics. The arts have that show, don't tell power. And that allowed me, Ping Pong Productions' mission was bringing China and the world together through the performing arts. So the arts would show sides of our countries. And that's exactly what I get to do now that I like to say I went from China to Carolina. And here at UNC Chapel Hill, leading Carolina Performing Arts, we get to bring art from all over the world to help audiences and students and faculty see things you wouldn't otherwise see.
So I love this notion of the and versus the or. How do you put that in a balance of, in order to be successful or get results, you have to have focus? Like my ADD mind immediately goes, I want to be a mile wide and an inch deep. I want to do everything.
Right.
I want to do 10 different businesses. I want to be on TV, on a movie, and, start a family and buy a beach. Like I want to do all these different things. And why can't I do it all? But at the same time, there's this notion of compound focus. So how do you bridge those two?
So the triumph of and versus or doesn't mean you do and all at the same time, all at once. You have time. And I think as business leaders, you realize everything takes a lot longer than you think it's going to take.
Yes. I would say no business owner said I made more money faster than I thought I was going to, and it was easier than I thought it was going to be, right? I tell our franchisees all the time, the happiest you'll be is the day you're opening the business, because that's the easiest it's ever been.
Right.
It's going to only be harder from here. Now, you're going to be much more fulfilled and have much more better results over time. But sorry to interrupt, but
absolutely. I like to say it gets better. It never gets easier.
Yeah, that's good.
You strengthen your muscles, things, you're able to do it. But if it's easy, you haven't challenged yourself for the next stage.
Yeah.
So the triumph of and over or doesn't mean you do all of the things you just listed all at once right now.
Yeah.
There is still...
Which my impatient mind wants to do it all
yesterday, exactly. And that's where prioritization comes in. That's where focus matters. You want to do it all. What is the order of operations? Mm-hmm. That's, I think, where leadership comes in to see, okay, we have all of these different things we want to do. What needs to happen in what order, and how do we narrow it down and prioritize it?
So you're in the business of creative. You're also leading. It's an extremely large nonprofit. What do people get wrong? What are the misconceptions of leading a quote unquote nonprofit organization versus leading a for-profit organization like mine? What are the similarities? What are the differences? What's the common misconception?
I think the biggest misconception about nonprofit is that you don't have a profit. What's missing in nonprofit is that not for profit. You are not for profit. You are for your mission. You are for the impact you want to have in the world. And the bottom line is your means to get there. So obviously, for-profits also have missions, also have values. There's echoes across not-for-profits and for-profits, because ultimately you are about what impact, what change you want to see in the world. A not-for-profit, the only difference is the business model. You don't have investors that you're distributing dividends at the end of each quarter. Any of your dividends are going right back into the business, reinvested in the business to continue to deliver your mission. So it's just a different business model.
Is the misconception this notion that a nonprofit is charity, meaning like somebody is handing me money, I'm handing that to somebody else that's going to benefit them? Or is... Like, how would you reframe that, or how would you rebrand that if it's a branding issue?
Right. I think the way I would rebrand non-for-profits is just a different business model. You have more diversified income streams. You still have earned revenue in some cases. So in our case, we sell tickets, we rent out some of our venues, so we earn money that way, but that's not enough to cover all of our expenses. So we also have philanthropic investment, we have sponsorship, and we have grants that we apply for. So those are diversified income streams. The simplified way is earned versus raised, and the raised is the philanthropic piece. So nobody's giving us anything. If you're investing in a for-profit, the return on your investment is going to be that financial dividend. If you're investing in a nonprofit, those are philanthropic gifts. Your investment is seeing the results of how that not-for-profit used your investment. So in our case, people invest in art with philanthropic donations because they want to see more students have access to the arts. UNC, University of North Carolina, has one of the largest percentage of first-generation college students coming to UNC. Many of those first-gen students have never stepped foot in a theater. Even if they're not first-gen, they've never stepped foot in a theater. So by investing in our organization, we repurpose that to then have the impact we want to have in the world.
It's a fascinating sort of dichotomy there, because like, do you find with some of your employees or early employees, they maybe even have that misconception, like they get disillusioned with like, what do you mean we're trying to be profitable as a nonprofit? This isn't what I signed up for, or this is, maybe they're sort of anti-capitalistic in a sense of like, I want to be just purely mission driven, but not understanding, mantra we have as a purpose driven organization is no margin, no mission. If you don't have a margin, you can't fund and fulfill the purpose and the impact that you're trying to make. So do you have to educate folks about that?
I've been surprised. I absolutely have had that conversation with some of our staff when we were helping them learn good business principles, learn about financial literacy, to talk about earning income. They said, well, we're a nonprofit. Why do we need income? I said, how do you think I pay your salary?
Right.
We need income. It just means that income is being reinvested in the business. We're still running a business. A not-for-profit organization is a not-for-profit business. It's just a different business model.
Right. And so it seems like almost leadership is that much more critical in that situation, because you've got the mission and purpose that draws people to want to be a part of it, either as a team member, as an investor or donor, or a patron of the arts, in your case. But you've also, I guess, have to be able to communicate that in a way that you're delivering on all of those promises and still doing it in a quote-unquote fiduciary way. So then in your case, where you've been passionate about the arts, and I would say more artistic than I am, just in sort of an art sense, how was it challenging for you to sort of also gain that business acumen? And did it hurt your passion for the arts to have to then go do this other stuff that's maybe not as fun or creative because it's the business side of the endeavor? I
mean, maybe just like you say, hunks are in the eye of the beholder, creativity's in the eye of the beholder, and building something out of nothing is the creative process. I definitely had to learn other skills when I founded Ping Pong Productions, and one of the big cautionary tales I had is actually thanks to you introducing me to the book, The E-Myth, because in that book, they talk about the difference between you love making pies, you're good at making pies. That's different than running a business about pies. So I love the arts, I love to create art, but running a business that facilitated other people making art is a different thing. What I realized I loved wasn't just great art. I love how the arts bring people together.
Yeah.
And that is needed more than ever these days, where we are the international epidemic of loneliness and isolation is written up in reports. It's written by the Surgeon General. You can see it with your kids that sit on the screens all day. How do we get people to put the screen down and gather in person for a shared experience?
Yeah.
So once I found that why, that art was just the tool to do that.
And then became your North
learn.
Star, and then you had the platform to be able to pursue
it.
That blended your passion for performing arts, international...
Bringing people together, relations, understanding different cultures. And different cultures don't have to be at a global geographic scale. They can be in the same neighborhood, at the same school, in the same place. And those people have different experiences, different backgrounds, perspectives. So what is the special catalytic sauce that brings them together to have something shared?
Wow. And so from a culture perspective, since you talk about culture, like I always think about culture in the context of company culture. Like, hey, what's our employee experience? What's our franchisee experience? We set it up with our vision and values. You've experienced international cultures, living in Beijing, traveling into small pockets of China, then living in Hong Kong, now living in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So you've got sort of the country culture, you've got the city, you've got the organization, then you've got your divisional departmental culture as well. And then now in your case, being part of a campus, you've got the student culture, the campus culture, the athletics. So help me sort of bring all of those things into focus.
Just a few of those.
Yeah.
Just all of those.
I mean, your worldly experience, but then you're building a team and you're trying to execute a mission. So you've got your own internal culture as well. And how do you like kind of, I guess, pick the pieces of it? And does it require somebody at the top championing those elements of what the culture is? Is it just something that evolves over time and through history?
I think I'm so grateful for 20 years living in Greater China, 16 years in Beijing, 4 years in Hong Kong, because if nothing else, it teaches you humility. You are a guest in another place. You don't know what you don't know, and every day is a learning opportunity. That is the best boot camp for being a leader, because it teaches you never have all the answers, and you need to surround yourself with good advisors. I think Lorne Michaels from Saturday Night Live had the quote, "If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room." And so how do you surround yourself with people that have more expertise in something, that you can call them mentors? But then you have to process all that information and make a decision about how to move forward. And I think a lot of great leaders, that's what you do. You take in the information, you survey the landscape, you have people saying, well, I think we should do this. Well, I think we shouldn't do that. In the end, you have the responsibility and the accountability to make the decision to take the next step. And I think that working in different cultures internationally, Ping Pong Productions, we toured artists to more than 50 countries on 5 continents.
Wow.
Every country and culture had a different way of doing things. We had to adapt to that.
Right, because there's the customs of how you do business. You don't want to offend somebody. There's the etiquette component.
Yeah, we talk about, so cultural exchange is something you hear about, that, the arts help us learn about other cultures. And when we talked about cultural exchange, sure, there were the artists we were putting on stage and the audience was going to learn something. But I said the cultural exchange was actually the back end. It was filling out the visa forms. It was my lighting director and the lighting director from Singapore or Australia or Brazil. They were engaged in cultural exchange because how they set up a show, how they marketed to their audiences were different in each place. And we had to figure out how we were going to come together for the shared goal of the show must go on.
And you mentioned to me before we started filming, one of the experiences you had going from Beijing to Hong Kong as a leader was there was almost some cultural norms that were dynamics, or I should say cultural dynamics of the organizations that were different, the employee mindset approach. Talk about that.
Exactly. So in Beijing, I was in Beijing in the lead up to the Beijing Olympics. So it was just the best entrepreneurial energy you've ever seen. It was, we've arrived on the world stage, we're building, that's when Alibaba was starting up, WeChat, all of these things. So the energy was totally creative and totally wild because everybody was up for big risk, big reward, let's try it. And running a tiny little small nonprofit like Ping Pong Productions, my team, there were 5 of us around a table, from Beijing and Henan and Shanghai, and we would just hash it all out together. It was very egalitarian, very collaborative. And then I get to Hong Kong, which is a much more developed economic market. It's a former British colony. And I'm no longer working in a 5-person startup. I'm working in the largest arts and culture development in the world, 100 acres of land, building 5 performing arts centers, 2 museums, retail, dining, entertainment. I have 1,000 people reporting to me. So I go into a little meeting thinking I'm going to hash it out around the table. And I'm getting blank stares because I'm the leader and they're expecting me to tell them what to do so they can go do it. And
Which
it's a much more hierarchical
I would have
place.
almost expected the reverse. Coming out of communist China, that it would have been people waiting around to be told what to do versus going to Hong Kong, a capitalist society. But to your point, you had the opposite experience.
180-degree opposite. China, even though the name of the one-party rule is still communist, the way it operates is incredibly market-driven, entrepreneurial, and it's been in such rapid transition. And anything in transition is very creative. So people are out there, renegades. Everybody's got a startup. My taxi driver had a startup. Moving and shaking. This person has a dance company. This person has a startup. This person has a restaurant. It's nonstop. Whereas Hong Kong is more established. So there's a way to do things. And in Beijing, no didn't mean no. It meant ask someone else. In Hong Kong, rule of law, no means no, which has some good points to it too.
Sure.
But it also meant you came up against different kinds of barriers.
Wow. And then how about then transitioning back to the States? What was that dynamic like for you, or adjustment, culture shock for you to kind of insert yourself as a leader in a campus culture, but it's an independent arts organization? affiliated
part
with
of the
UNC
campus.
organization or university.
Yeah. So taking that mindset of I'm moving to a foreign country was crucial. The humility,
that
beginner's mind. I'm here to learn. I've never lived in North Carolina. I've never really lived in the American South. We grew up in D.C. I went to school on the East Coast, Northeast. And so coming in with humility that I'm here to learn and to bring skills to maximize assets that are here and work together to take things to the next level. I'd never worked in a university. I've never worked in a state organization.
So how much observing versus inserting do you find yourself?
That was a big thing I learned from Hong Kong that I took to my next job at North Carolina. In Hong Kong, I came in with humility to listen, and I waited too long to start to make changes. I didn't want to come in and just bull in a china shop, start crashing things and changing and not paying attention to why people make decisions for a reason. So you got to understand before you change them. I waited too long, and then it was much harder to make. They're like, what are you trying to do now? Whereas with North Carolina, I came in and was like, I'm going to give myself 3 months, ask all the questions, get to know, do all the listening tours that I need to do. And then we're doing a strategic plan right out the gate because I don't want to wait. And then suddenly you can't be a prophet in your own community anymore. I wanted to grasp the luxury of newness to start making those changes.
That's good. And I think we talked again on the way over about, I think it was your middle school English teacher talked about asking questions and being curious. And it's not about knowing the answer. It's about
bringing it out of people.
Where did that, would that resonated with you and I guess has stuck with you as a leader to then apply throughout? But to hear that from an English teacher and be able to make the connection, or at least over time make that connection and apply it in a leadership capacity.
We have been so lucky to have great teachers. In that instance, our 7th and 8th grade English teacher, Barbara Taylor, we were doing a little section on Buddhism, and she showed us a video at the school library. Afterwards, she said, well, what questions do you have? And the kids just sat there. We had no questions. Her response was, well, maybe we don't know enough yet to ask, to know what questions to ask. And that blew open my little 13-year-old brain, because to that point I thought, well, I'm in school to learn things, to know the answers. I'm supposed to get the question right. I'm going to get the A+. And in that moment I thought, oh, you learn not to know. You learn to keep asking better questions. The more you know, the less, there's probably a song lyric out there, the more I learn, the less I know. And that's part of what kept me in China for 20 years. I went thinking I'd study for a year, I'd learn some things, and then I'd leave. The longer I was there, the more I thought, I don't know this place at all. I have more questions. I want to keep going. And that curiosity, I think, is also how you unlock good teams. I'm not there always to tell my team what to do. I'm there to ask the right questions to get the best out of them. You always want to walk into a meeting and say, what the hell were you thinking? That's not a good question. But if you think, this is a bad example, but what led you to that decision?
You're good at doing that with me, by the way. I've noticed you doing this, and because I've read it in books. Best leaders are curious. They're asking discovery type questions to really learn and understand. That's that Stephen Covey, seek to understand before seeking to be understood. But you've been, you'll say things to me like, tell me more about that, or explain that to me. And it's like, I kind of feel like you're using a tactic on me when you ask it, but it actually comes from a more genuine place when you ask it. If I try to use that tactic, my team's be like, okay, what's Nick digging at? Because usually my mind goes straight to trying to give the answer or cut to the chase. I'm just jumping to the end. But I think, to your point, whether it's been learned or developed or more innate within you, is having a level of patience and curiosity, but then also knowing when to, okay, now I'm going to start pressing the gas pedal and start, pushing as opposed to just pulling, receiving.
Yeah. I think that's where 2 other skills come into play. One is you can't fake it. You can't, if you ask leading questions, then you're being manipulative. And so you do have to be genuine, and that's where self-awareness, the other key tactic in leadership, know thyself. And so I'll call it out. I'll say, look, I have an opinion about this, but I'm really curious to understand why you disagree. Can you tell me more? And so I'm not, because otherwise I'm holding my answer, and they're just, they know it's there and they're going to wait. Just tell me what you want. And
I'm more guilty of that, right? I have this notion of, I know I have knee-jerk reactions, so I might disclaim that before I speak. It's like, hey, I have a bit of a knee-jerk reaction at times, but here's what I think.
Right.
Here's what you should do. So here it is. Maybe that, I guess, softens the blow a little bit.
But it's still doing it anyway.
Yeah, but it's still doing it anyway. But I think, again, that's how I'm wired, or how I've been developed as a leader to, attack things. And my team kind of knows that about me now, which I guess also gives them permission to give me a little bit more grace, as opposed to me just being the bull in the china shop all the time and then being like, what the hell's wrong with Nick? He's just, jumping right to the chase, or he's, having this reaction, or telling himself a story. So I have tried to your point, be a little bit more self-aware in those instances.
Yeah, and it's practice.
You're right.
This was a key word for us this year, and we just redid our vision, mission, values, and our values all respond to the starting, we practice, and then it's our values. We practice living with courage, because values are not a one and done. You don't flip a switch and now you're curious.
Right.
You don't flip a switch and now you're self-aware.
That's right.
Every moment, every meeting, every email, every person who cuts you off in traffic is an opportunity to practice the values you set out for yourself. And to me, that helps with self-judgment, where you're like, oh, I screwed up again, or I'm a this. Like,
Right.
I like verbs, not nouns. Nouns are fixed.
Give me an example.
I'm a mean person, or I'm a schmuck. That's a fixed thing. Or I'm a failure. Let's do that. I'm a failure. Well, that's a noun. Or I failed in this thing I just tried is an action. I failed this activity.
Yeah. Failure is a great one, right? Because there's every leadership book will tell you fail forward. I've heard it turned into an acronym: first attempt in learning.
Ooh.
You're failing up the hill, not down the cliff.
There's a great quote, Samuel Beckett, the famous Irish playwright: fail, fail again, fail better. And it's the same thing. Fail forward, fail better.
I mean, I've heard entrepreneurs say that the really successful ones, they failed more than anybody else because they're willing to try things, try them quickly, iterate. And that probably actually ties to the arts too, whether you're trying a new performance or trying a new expo event,
exactly.
festival.
I just saw the founder of the Savannah Bananas on Instagram. He said, innovation comes from iteration. And I love that, because you don't get it in one. It's not the light bulb goes off and you've suddenly found the cure to cancer, or you've invented a new art form that no one's ever done before. It's iteration. The Chinese word is jile, layers, and that's where you get the sudden breakthrough.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting too, is like you're quoting Chinese sayings that are applicable universally. I always joke that like you're going to come back with this sort of like Eastern Zen mindset, but it's like these are things that are relevant to any endeavor that you're pursuing. And so many, as we started the conversation about entrepreneurship or leadership in general, whether it's a platform of business, a nonprofit, arts, sports, there's so many similarities and parallels through it. And I think creation and being willing to innovate and try and evolve and iterate is one of those, parallels. Like I think of myself as an entrepreneur, as a creative. Like it's not that I'm passionate about moving and junk removal. I like taking a traditional bland business of trucks and labor, putting a catchy, playful name on it, seeing if we can inject a great energy into the culture through the values, and continue to evolve and have some fun with branding and marketing and so forth. So in that regard, leadership and being a creative or almost producer, if we're using the arts, performing arts verbiage, you're producing your life, you're producing your business, you're producing your team. So, the microcosm of a arts performance that you're producing, that can be applied into fill in the blank, a nonprofit organization, a university, a sports team.
Yep. I think about it every day. I used to do school plays in middle school and high school, and those were the happiest days of my life. And in reflecting as an adult about why those made me so happy, what about them? And for a while, I thought it was because I was doing theater. But what I realized, the core of what made me happy was working with a team for a shared goal. That when you're putting on a production, you have people from all walks of life, and there's showtime. And so you've got 1 month, 3 months, 6 months to get to that goal. So no matter what, you've got to figure out, solve the problems.
Right.
Because we have a goal that we have agreed to.
There's a specific
it's
deadline.
There. And now what is making me so happy at UNC leading Carolina Performing Arts is I've got an unbelievable team where we are working together every day for different shared goals, but the ultimate goal of making this world a healthier, more joyful place through shared arts experiences.
That's awesome. You talked about the vision, values, mission that you guys just developed for your organization. Again, applicable to any sports team, any business, any franchise, fill in the blank. But I thought was interesting what you shared with me previously, sort of the difference between vision, mission, and values. If you could kind of share that.
All credit to Ellen Lang, our director of marketing. She gave us the greatest shortcut for how to understand this, because it's business jargon, and people in business hear a lot of these buzzwords and key terms, like what's a purpose, a mission, what are we doing? So vision, that is the future state of the world that you are driving towards. It's the horizon in the distance. You may never arrive there. I mean, a vision, a great example is curing cancer. You may never arrive at that destination, but that is where you're going. So that's the far off future state. That's the horizon you're driving to.
They're making medical breakthroughs every day, by the way.
I'm hopeful. Mission is the car you're driving, and that is your role in getting to that destination. So it's your company, it's why this organization exists, it's why you and your team get out of bed every day. That's the mission. That's the car you're in to drive to the horizon. The values are your hands on the wheel, how you make decisions, how you turn, how you avoid the pothole, how you speed up or slow down. Values are how you make every single decision. So future state, the horizon, mission, your role in it in the car, values, how you make a decision to get there.
That's great. That's great. And having those frameworks as foundational and unchanging allows people to come into the organization, and it defines, this is how we do things here. This is where we're going. This is the behaviors that are going to help us get there, and characteristics that we hold tight to each other and hold accountable to each other. And it's funny that you use that car analogy, because I've used the same one internally without ever talking to your marketing director. You know, I say the values are like the guardrails that keep us on the road, or the rumble strips that keep us from driving off the highway. You know, you drive off the road and you get the on the tires, and it pulls you back into the lane. And so we have a saying at College Hunks: it's not what's on the walls, it's what's in the halls and who's in the homes. Meaning, it's not just these fancy slogans up on the posters or in the first page of the training manual, but it's truly the behaviors that allow us to attract people that are going to help bring the mission and vision into a closer reality.
It's action. I said the exact same thing 2 days ago. It's funny. I said it's not words on a decoration in home goods that you hang on the wall.
Right.
This only matters if we put it into practice, in action. What does it look like in action?
Yeah.
When you get that email that pisses you off, or we have to make a decision between our mission driven, this is going to be really impactful, but we're going to have to go into a little bit of a deficit to do it. These seem at odds between some of our values. So how do you wrestle with that? And it's not a checklist.
Right.
Values are never yep, done.
Right.
They're always gray areas. They're always in conflict.
Right.
But if you feel that you've grappled with it and your team has grappled with it, so then as a leader, when you make the decision, they may not agree, but they understand why.
Yeah.
They'll be with you.
And that's what I've said a bunch of times on this podcast. You know, the values aren't just these warm and fuzzies that make everybody feel good. It's levels of accountability that we need to be willing to hold people accountable to. And you were sharing with me, one of your values is courage. And it's not just about courage in trying new things artistically. It's courage about having difficult conversations. It's courage about, calling somebody out for not
living up to
what was expected from a performance or value standpoint. Is it more difficult in a organization that's a nonprofit or is university backed versus if it were your own business to be able to sort of operate in those frameworks? Or what are some of the challenges that you've faced in that regard?
No, I think it's absolutely the same. I think that if your vision, mission, and values are clear, and I've even seen it, we just rolled out our sort of approved, it's taken us, side note, in a business, you are always building the plane while you fly it. It is never linear. Okay, we're going to have our strategic plan, then our vision, mission, values, and then we're going to go do the stuff.
Right.
Like you're coming in, I'm taking over. I'm the number 2 of a startup that was 20 years old. So my predecessor was the visionary. He went fast and broke things. He built a juggernaut. and I came in and had to put systems in place.
Right. You're grabbing the wheel of the bus or the train or the plane, whatever.
Exactly. And
flying instrument you want to call it.
And as I already started steering at the beginning, people started opting out who weren't along for the ride, because it was clear we were in a different, it was coming out of the pandemic.
Right.
A lot of things had to change.
Did you have to opt some people out as well as the leader?
Only one.
Really?
Yeah.
And everybody else opted
Everybody
themselves?
else opted themselves. Some to go on to bigger, better things for good reasons, but there were a very clear number that couldn't get on board with the vision that we had, the values that we were holding each other accountable to, and that allowed the culture to kind of start self-selecting.
Awesome. Let's talk about the Artists Are Athletes, Athletes Are Artists campaign. I thought this was an absolute genius from a branding perspective, cultural stamp perspective. You join a community like the UNC Chapel Hill University community. It's obviously diehard Carolina Blue, basketball, football, women's soccer, lacrosse. Like it's known as a sports institution, iconic, if you will. And a lot of times, athletes might roll their eyes at the arts, or artists might, stereotypically say, oh, those are just dumb jocks. Like, you figured out a way to build a parallel bridge, which speaks exactly to the mission you said you set out to, which is, creating connections through the performing arts. So talk about that campaign. Started with basketball, then women's soccer, then more recently the Conductor Leadership campaign.
Yeah, this started actually with your basketball coach back when we were in middle school and high school. I was walking to my dance rehearsal, and your basketball coach stopped me and said, Alison, you got to get your brother into ballet class. I was like, sure, why? It's going to help him jump higher. And that stuck in my mind. That
I should have done it, because I still can't jump.
The height and hang time of leaps and layups is what stuck in my mind. Is ballet and basketball, these elite humans that train what they share. They share grit, they share discipline, they share overcoming obstacles. And so that stuck with me. So fast forward a few decades, I'm getting ready to move from China to Carolina, go from Hong Kong to Chapel Hill. And I heard, UNC, as you mentioned, had this basketball thing going on. And I also knew that I was inheriting this crown jewel of an arts organization. Carolina Performing Arts is known for bringing the greatest artists from all over the world to Carolina. And I thought, okay, we need to show, don't tell, we need to show people what these things have in common. So our first video, 60 seconds, has a player from UNC men's basketball and a dancer from the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, which is one of the greatest dance companies in the world. And they've been coming to Carolina for 20 plus years. They're one of our longest partners. And in just 60 seconds, we show the height and hang time of leaps and layups. We show the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into it. And it's now a series. Artists are athletes, athletes are artists.
And the second one was?
Second one shows the fancy footwork and percussive kicks of women's basketball and tap dance.
I love the branding that you're applying to this too, by the way. This is obviously not unintentional, but
again, the parallels are there. And what I love about creativity, and you've done this with College Hunks, and what we're doing with artists and athletes is what is hidden in plain sight.
Yeah.
It's so obvious to a lot of us that artists require the same to excel. How do you achieve excellence?
Yeah.
And that's through the same things, whether you're an artist, an athlete, an entrepreneur.
So you brought that campaign. I mean, there had to be some people that doubted it or just were like, I don't get it. And you talked about on the way here, there's some people that'll see something immediately and be like, got it, I'm with it. What was that?
Those are the people.
construct?
I call it, and I didn't make up this term, but it's the coalition of the willing. How do you find your team that get what you're going for and are going to help you do it? So I was very lucky when I landed at Carolina. Within a couple of months, I'm meeting with the chancellor. It's the president of the university at the time. And I told him my vision for artists and athletes. He got it out of the gate. He thought it was great. He thought it exemplified the values of UNC. UNC is, 20,000 undergraduates. We want them to have these values of hard work, grit, teamwork, and excellence, leadership, and all of that. So he immediately introduced me to the men's basketball team. They thought it was a great idea. They wanted to do creative things, and on and on and on. So that helped make it possible when then other people, including some people on my team who have self-exited, were like, well, I don't get it. I mean, what are we going to do with it? What's the point? Are we selling tickets with it? No, it's not a transactional sales thing. It's about what we stand for. It's about showing, the creative leadership and visionary leadership that Carolina Performing Arts and UNC have. And so needing that early adopters
Right.
that get it and can work with you to make it happen.
And there's going to be haters. No matter, anytime you're doing something that's outside of the mold, people are going to critique it. Did you did that bother you if you saw people on social media being like, "Oh, what is this ballet and basketball, nonsense? Focus on the basketball." The hardcore athlete fan or sports fans, I saw a few comments like that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they're never going to embrace the arts regardless, but there's going to be some people that cross over, see those parallels, and that's ultimately the goal.
Well, exactly. And the haters are the ones that reemphasize, oh, this is exactly why we're doing this. This shows me even more why this is important, why this is meaningful. Because the worst is indifference. You want people to either be your huge champions, or if they really hate you, you've hit a nerve. And that means that there's something meaningful there and something worth getting curious about. So indifference, oh yeah, that's fine, that's the enemy.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
The third one, sorry, I want to talk about
please.
the third video.
I was going to ask about it, so yeah,
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
So the first two videos about individual student athletes and artists. The third one takes it to, zooms out and is all about leadership. An orchestra conductor and a lacrosse coach. So it's about how great leaders take a group of people to be greater than the sum of their parts. They bring out the best in people. Jenny Levy, women's lacrosse, 4-time national champion, Hall of Fame coach. Yannick Nézet-Séguin, he's the conductor of the Met Opera in New York, Philadelphia Orchestra, and on and on and on. And when you are standing in front of a team of athletes, when you're standing in front of the best musicians in the world, you have to make them work together. And that's what this third video is looking at, great leadership.
Couldn't get Bill Belichick, the football coach.
No, he was not available.
A little more controversial, probably.
Well, the other piece that I think these two that we chose stand for is positive leadership. None of them break down their musicians or their student athletes. They lift them up. It's the positivity in the room when we filmed the most recent video was amazing to show that leadership can be positively inspiring, not negative and damaging.
What is it about a conductor that is required to bring out leadership in his artists, or a creative director or producer that's relevant to a business leader or a manager?
Yeah. So first and foremost, you want the best players on your team. You want the best musicians in your orchestra.
Yeah.
Yannick is the greatest conductor, and he is conducting some of the best musicians alive today.
So he's probably maniacal about talent selection.
Absolutely. And how does he help them step up? How does he help them be better? Because it's a cyclical factor. Great leaders bring out the best in people. That makes the organization better, and it becomes that positive flywheel that you talk about.
Yeah. I use so many sports analogies in our company. Like, you got to have the players that can play on the field, but you also got to have players that align with the values so that they can get along and push each other positively in the locker room and hold each other accountable. So, and people with raw talent aren't always becoming the best team members because they just coast on that talent. So talk about what you've observed in the arts and perhaps in the business sense as well.
Well, I'll take your sports analogy and add an arts analogy. If you have a raw lump of clay, let's say that raw lump of clay is the talent. That's great. That's something there. But what are you going to do with it? How are you going to sculpt that raw lump of clay into the most perfect pot or bowl or sculpture in the world? And that's discipline. That's where the discipline, the accountability, the systems and processes come into play, is to take raw talent and make it better than it would be on its own or if it were just left. I think that's where the arts and the sports and the business analogies all align. You see lots of people, and you talk about wasted talent. I think that's true. You see people that have a gift and don't do anything with it, or aren't interested in doing anything with it. They're not going to be the next Beethoven or Michael Jordan. You see the amount of hard work and discipline to do something with the raw talent. And then vice versa, I think that even people with less talent, but given the right circumstances, structures, they can even surpass their own expectations. And I think that's our job as business leaders, is to
I was going to say, that's where leadership comes into play, is like recognizing raw talent, recognizing what somebody's ceiling is of capacity. You know, this person might not make the varsity lacrosse team, but could be a great Ivy League lacrosse player. Actually, they got good lacrosse in Ivy League, but Division III or what have you, right? Like, I wasn't going to play big time Division I basketball, but I wanted to play basketball, so I went Division III. So having I guess, your own diligence and work ethic, but then as a leader, being able to pull out the best of people. That's something I'm passionate about, is what I call potential maximization or optimization or say realization, actualization.
Right.
A lot of
all those
Ations.
words.
All those Ations.
All those Ations. Well, and that's where you asked me when I've had to exit people from the organization. It's when you've done everything you can to try and help maximize their potential, and they're either, skill or will. They're either not able or not willing to go to that next level. That's when it's time to have a conversation about, well, then maybe there's another place that's a better fit that's not here.
Yeah, you talked about the coalition of the willing. It's refreshing when I have a vision or an idea, and not to say I want yes men or women around me, but my idea that I'm very keen on, I can see it click immediately, and then the team can take that idea and move it into something further, help further
make
ideate
it better. Yeah.
And I think that's the get it side. Not everybody can just get it, and then on top of that, we say they've got to want it and have the capacity to do it. So they got to have those three components, and then as leaders, you've got to identify, does this person get it, want it, and have capacity to do it for the seat or on the bus or the role on the team that I'm putting them in. And if not, is it a coaching conversation, or is it relocating them to a different role, or is it helping them find a different opportunity outside of this organization?
Exactly.
Actually, you talked about one of the things is getting things done, and going from China to Hong Kong, now to a university environment. You shared with me this framework or pattern that you've observed over time, which I think you called it the 4 questions. So talk to me about that, because that was pretty powerful.
So I had this realization in my early 20s. I was working on a project where we were doing a big festival in Beijing, and this theater used to be state-run, and now it was moving to a more commercial element, but the folks really just didn't want to get things done. And I realized I could get them done, but I had to ask for everything 4 times. The first time, the answer I got was, 没办法, it's not possible. The second time I asked, the answer was, 太麻烦, it's too troublesome. The third time I asked, the response was, 一会儿再说. We'll talk about it later. They just want to get rid of me. And the fourth time I asked, okay.
Okay, we'll do it.
We'll do it.
Yeah.
Now, the distance, the length of time between the 4 questions could be a few minutes to a few months to a few years. But you keep coming back almost like Groundhog's Day, and I never got angry. I never escalated my tone. I asked as if I'd never asked before, but I kept asking, and I kept asking.
That's powerful, because as a founder, visionary, I have ideas all the time, or I have, a very emphatic feeling that we've got to, make this quick win change, and I'll tell somebody on the team, and their response might be, too troublesome, or okay, we'll deal with it later, or what have you.
Yeah,
and then,
or we can't do that because all these reasons.
Because of X, Y, we tried that before, and I get frustrated. But like, hey, I've asked for this 4 times. Why hasn't it been done yet? Or 3 times. I got to ask for the 4th time. So that's the lesson. Or I always say, there's the rule of 7 in marketing. Somebody has to hear something 7 times before it sort of they become aware of it.
Yeah.
And now with social media, they've said that's expanded to 27. So I've always said you got to repeat yourself as a leader till you're blue in the face. If somebody shows up with their shirt not tucked in at our office in the morning for the Hunks dispatch, we can't say, hey, I've told you 5 times already. It's like, no, you got to tell them 2 more times, maybe 22 more times before they even process and connect with it. But I think what you shared with that 4-question framework, it really speaks to persistence and not giving up, or not letting the door shut after one no, and having that hamster wheel of circling back through, or the carousel of following up, or figuring out another way around to getting it done.
Well, the first Artist Athletes video took me 2 years from that first conversation with the president of the university and the basketball team. It was still the tail end of the pandemic. Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater was touring. And surprisingly, they didn't get it. They were the hardest ones to convince at the beginning, but kept going back, kept talking to different people. And finally, I found their marketing person, and she's like, oh my gosh, yes, we have to do this. This is incredible. But it took 2 years because of both external and internal factors for us to do it. And then even this third one, the video crew was like, I don't know, how do you express leadership? That's so abstract. Like a jump, I can film a jump. That's visual. But leadership, these are abstract. How do I film leadership? And it took us 2 more years to get that one done. So yes, persistence.
What are the stressors that you deal with in your leadership role that people don't see, or that you don't have an immediate outlet to be able to, unpack easily or talk to folks about? And do you have an inner circle, a mentorship group, a peer group?
I would say probably one of the things that surprised me with leadership is the loneliness aspect of it, because you want to have close relationships with your team. They're collegial, they're friends, but there's a balance. And that old saying, it's lonely at the top, there's some truth to that. So it's so important to find other leaders in other fields. So then it's not gossip.
Yeah.
You never want any of that to come across as you're gossiping about your colleagues or the trouble employee, that kind of thing. It's really about strategic direction. And so finding colleagues in other industries or even in your own industry, but in other markets that you can share that, and then always having mentors. And your mentors change at every step. I mean, who they are at one phase of your life and career might need to be totally different at another phase, but finding them. And I find the way I deal with my mentors is similar to the way I deal with my team, because ultimately you have to take the accountability and make the decision. So I listen to all the good advice of my mentors, but I still have to make that final decision. And it's the same with your team.
Yeah, that's true. And I think there's this empowerment component to it. Like when you hire somebody for the first time into an organization, you may be directing them. Eventually, you're going to allow them to make recommendations. Eventually, you're going to allow them or empower them to make decisions. Or maybe you've hired them high enough up the org chart to make decisions day one. And ultimately, you want to entrust that they're going to make those decisions hopefully better than you can, or be impactful in making those decisions along the way.
Absolutely.
What's one leadership lesson that you've seen from the arts that every leader or manager should adopt into their own practice?
That everything is live. There's no rehearsal. This is live, one shot. You don't get to do it again. And even though that's part of what's terrifying about it, that's part of the beauty and the excitement of being a leader. It's like you're in a live taped Saturday Night Live, or you're live on stage with a live audience every single moment, whether that audience is your team, your constituents, your consumers, your partners. That sense of a live performance is what keeps you in the moment. I think it keeps you focused.
Does that add a level of stress or angst or worry that you're going to mess it up? Or
it could. I think it
perfectionism?
I think it can get rid of the perfectionism, because perfectionism is about halting. It's about holding back until it's perfect. And you don't have time for that. If it's showtime, if the lights are on, the curtains open, go. What I wish for leaders is to have that sense of as you go down the roller coaster, not, oh my God, because that tension is going to block your creativity.
That's actually really powerful, because I always say, like, our franchise owners that view the leadership role that they have as a blessing, not a burden, are going to be the ones that ultimately succeed, because guys are showing up late, guys are breaking stuff. It's hard work. They're having a frustrating time with these entry-level employees. But if they view that as a truly opportunity to mentor, coach, lead, develop, as opposed to, this younger generation doesn't have work ethic, they can't do anything right, they don't listen.
Yeah. On Jenny Levy, lacrosse coach, 4-time national champion, Hall of Fame, on every single lacrosse stick, they have printed 4 stars for the 4 national champions, and we get to. It's that mindset of we get to do this every day. We get to get up and, go for those 2-mile, 5-mile, whatever mile runs at 5 a.m. before we go to a full day of class, before we come back, and we get to do this. And it's that sense too of leadership. Yeah. We get to do this.
And as a leader, you have to have that mindset. Or you get to have that mindset, but you get to have that get to mindset, because you're going to feed the energy into everybody else within the organization that ultimately is going to deliver on the brand and develop the culture that's going to provide the service, that's going to create the sustainability and the financial rewards that come with it. What is success to you? Like in my business, there's always the profit motive, of course, probably ego-driven in the early days. Now we're much more purpose and vision and mission-driven, and that keeps me getting out of bed in the morning as a founder. But for you, what do you kind of get out of your bed in the morning every day to want to go tackle?
For us, the profit margin is not the success factor. That's the means to an end. That's the tool. So we're getting that, but not as what our goal is. That's so that we can get to our goal. Yeah. So for me, success is when somebody has some experience in the arts that makes them go, oh, I never thought of that before.
Yeah.
Or, oh, it takes the way we all see the world a little bit tunnel vision.
Right.
And if this can push it open a little bit bigger to make a little more room for that,
right,
we've succeeded.
What KPIs do you measure? Key performance indicators. I mean,
Yeah.
for us, we're measuring average ticket. We're measuring, conversion, close percentage over the phone and in the field, customer service score. What are you guys measuring on a regular basis as a scoreboard?
We're starting to put some of those in place for our next round of strategic planning and for a big new venture that we're launching in February of 27, a new festival,
wow.
citywide, campus-wide festival. We do have the quantitative KPIs, so we are measuring financial things, ticket sales, ticket prices, repeat customers,
attendance,
repeat customers, how many students have we reached, how many workshops have we done. So the numbers we're measuring. The qualitative measurements are the more challenging things in any field, but especially in arts and culture and more impact-driven, because it has to be longitudinal over time. You don't go to a dance workshop and suddenly your entire life has changed.
Right.
You need repeat performance. If we want to change quality of life, health and well-being, there are all kinds of studies, and it helps that we're at UNC, a major research university, about the impact of the arts on mental health, on well-being, on physical health. But if we're tracking those health indicators, we need to do that over time. So we have great partners that are now putting in place, whether it's through surveys, longitudinal surveys, or just some anecdotal things to be able to track, because that's how we also give return to our investors. They're not getting ROI on their philanthropic gifts, they're getting impact reports. How many students' lives were changed? How many artists had an opportunity to create a new work thanks to our commissioning, things like that.
And being in a university environment, you talked about, I think you coined the phrase, the AAA objective, if you want to expand on that.
Exactly. So we have an incredible new chancellor, Lee Roberts. He wants to elevate the arts at Carolina, and University of North Carolina has a AAA bond rating, which is it's in the markets, it's a financial term. And I said, that's great. We're one of the few public universities with a AAA bond rating, but our other AAA rating stands for arts, academics, athletics, that we are leaders as the oldest public university in America, UNC Chapel Hill, oldest public university in the country. We are one of the strongest academically. We also know about our athletics. UNC stands for University of National Champions. And the arts on campus are absolutely at that level, but haven't yet had the recognition. So part of my role and part of what we're doing for the next phase isn't just for Carolina Performing Arts, but all of UNC, elevating the arts so that we're known for that AAA leadership.
Wow. So I want to bring it home as, siblings, National Sibling Day week, which, they'll have a day for everything, right? But I think it's pretty cool that we've had a chance to do this. Outsiders might look at the two of us and be like, okay, those are pretty non-traditional career paths. You got one guy that jumped on a truck in college and then didn't get off it for 20 years and now has got 200 locations around the country, national brand and moving and junk removal. You got a woman who moved to Asia for 20 years to pursue this passion in arts. She became fluent in Chinese and then came back to lead this, very cutting-edge performing arts organization affiliated with the oldest university in the country. So I want to take it back to our childhood. We were only 18 months apart. I joked at the beginning that it always felt like you were, at least 5 years more mature than I was. But what, without giving our parents too many flowers, what do you think it was that they instilled in us, or our teachers instilled in us, or our environment instilled in us that gave us the confidence to pursue something not necessarily very traditional, but then to be passionate and committed enough to see it all the way through, and to your point, stepping on the rocks of the river along the way to explore our way into it. Anything that comes to mind as you think about that?
Yeah, I think we talked earlier about mentorship and the importance of good mentors, so you're not out there alone. I feel like as great parents, mom and dad were definitely some of our earliest mentors, especially as we got older. As kids, we were kids, but I think when I was going to China and I was starting my own company there, I would ask mom and dad for advice. And I know dad and mom were really involved early days, college hunks.
Right. And which, interestingly enough, neither one of them had relevant experience. Right. It was more so almost being just a sounding board. And most of our complaints in those early days were about the people we were dealing with or hiring or didn't know how to manage through or work with.
Absolutely. So I think they were just really good mentors. Mom actually credits one of our teachers. I think it was a compound effect. We had great teachers, great parents that made us feel safe and let us have the audacity to think we could follow our dreams.
Yeah.
I also think we talked a little bit about the I was going to quote our teacher. Mom often gives credit to Mario Steinwinter, my first grade teacher. Mom, early parent, went to her with nerves. I was a really shy little kid. And Mario's advice to her was, don't worry, just get out of her way. She'll be fine. And Mom took that to heart. She often credits that as they like to say they just got out of our way and let us be us. I think that's a little glib. I think they found a cool balance of out of our way, but we always knew they were there.
Right. I think that was for me, was knowing that there was sort of like almost like a safety net that we could come home to if need be. Like in my mind, I was like, okay, when I started the business, the worst case scenario, move back in with my parents and get a job until I make my money back up and go live on my own. And there's probably, to your point, a balance there, because I didn't look at that as a crutch. Right. I looked at it as a potential safety net or parachute pull in the case of emergency. Because now you hear the stereotype of the 30, 40-year-old in his parents' basement playing video games every day, where there's a level of entitlement and crutching on their parents. And so maybe that was just our own willingness to not let that happen and view it, because I don't know that they necessarily ever said like, hey, you got to get out of the house or else, right? The only thing Mom ever said to me was like, if you ever get a tattoo, don't think you're coming home. And the other quote from Dad was, which I always joke, is, when I told him before I started the business, I was struggling with an idea, and he was, in his own right, a successful self-employed doctor. He said, hey, Nick, you're smarter than I am, better educated than I was. If you don't do better than I did, you failed. And so
no pressure.
But I actually looked at that as like, hey, almost like setting the mark as, hey, you can go out and chase that, whatever it is, and be better, than I was, or do better than I did. His more recent advice was, hey, Nick, you got a great life, a great business, a great family. Don't F it up.
Great advice.
Two sound pieces of advice on the bookends. Yeah. The lemonade story I want to end with. So I've told this up on stage. The story goes, and I actually never really heard your side of it, is we wanted to go have a lemonade stand. My kids still do that. They make a lot more money than we did. You wanted to charge 25 cents for lemonade. I didn't think that was enough for us to split. So I went and started a competing lemonade stand next to you, and I had $1 for my lemonade. So here we were, these two probably 6 and 5-year-old kids.
I think there's a photo even.
25 cents lemonade, $1 for lemonade. The puzzled looks on people's faces as they drove by. I think they ended up buying lemonade from both of us, but of course I made more money because I was charging 4 times as much. Is that as you remember it, or was there anything else to that story?
I've now heard this story so many times it has replaced I mean, here's my moment to finally tell the truth, what the actual
set the record
straight. But
Did you fire me, and that's why I went and started it?
I think I did, actually. I think you were in my way. I was the grumpy older sister. I didn't want my pesky little brother around, and so you showed me.
Yeah, well, that was my first lesson in pricing, is that people buy based on emotion, not based on logic.
Exactly.
The $1 lemonade versus the 25-cent lemonade. But also maybe that was set the path, right? I was going to pursue a career in for-profit capitalism.
Exactly.
And you were going
I just wanted to get the people lemonade at something they could afford.
That's right. You just wanted to make sure that you had enough to cover your costs and then reinvest into the next supply
batch of lemonade.
And make sure everybody has their lemonade. So this was awesome. Pretty magical experience to be able to do this with you. Congratulations on the journey. Beginner's mind. It feels like we're just getting started every day. Yeah. Thanks for being an inspiration and a mentor, and sharing a lot of very unique knowledge and experience from your worldly travels that now is getting applied in a really powerful platform to benefit others. So thank you for being a part of this.
Love you, brother.
Love you too. So that was another episode of Hunks Talking Junk podcast with my sister, Alison Friedman, the executive director for Carolina Performing Arts. Be sure to check out carolinaperformingarts.org, or you can find them on all the social media platforms. Carolina Performing Arts, really a powerful organization and platform, and a great example of leadership, branding, and culture, all culminating to make a powerful impact which can really be applied in any endeavor, business, arts, sports, or leadership and management in general. So stay tuned to the next episode. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll check you next time.